Kia ora. I am so excited to be able to be with you. I wish I were with you. I wish I could be with you in person. But since we can't right now, I'm grateful for technology and the chance that I have to speak to you even though I'm far away. When we were set apart in our callings as the presidency of the young men, and it was right after General Conference and right after the world closed down because of COVID, we went to President Nelson's conference room there by his office to be set apart. And they said, don't bring your families, just bring your wives because we have to stay in a small group. And as we entered that conference room, President Nelson said, I wish I could greet you. I wish I could hug you. I wish I could shake your hands. He said, since we can't, feel my love. And I guess that's what I want to say to you. I wish I could be there to hug you. I wish I could be there to shake your hands, to greet you. But since I can't, feel my love. When we were in New Zealand, and I directed a study abroad group for BYU, we spent about 6 months in that wonderful country. And we traveled from the top of the North Island down into the South Island. I didn't go bungee jumping in Queenstown, but my son and my daughter did. We just had such an amazing experience, and we traveled to so many places and met so many members of the church. We had the chance to soak in the history of that country and to feel the spirit of the members of the church there. I was given this as a gift as I left. Now you'll recognize it. People who come to my home don't always recognize it, and they say, oh, that's beautiful. What is it? And I'm able to tell them that in New Zealand, this is a symbol of eternal friendship. And that's how I feel about the saints in New Zealand. I feel bound like this in eternal friendship. And I'm so grateful for the influence that you've had on me and on my family. As I've had the chance to speak to the youth there, to speak to the young single adults there, as I've had the chance to bear my testimony to members of the church there, I feel the reality of this symbol, and I feel bound in eternal friendship. I also brought home another gift. This is some beautiful green stone that I was given. And on the internet, it says green stone is precious and it's powerful and it's a symbol of honor and permanence. Boy, is there any better way to describe the saints in New Zealand? Is there any better way to describe the legacy of the church in that amazing country? Precious, powerful, a symbol of honor and permanence. That describes you, and I'm grateful to be able to have this beautiful piece of greenstone in my home. The person who gave it to me said, greenstone has to be a gift. You shouldn't buy it for yourself. It has to be a gift, because if it comes to you as a gift, then it brings good luck. So thank you for the gift. Thank you for the good luck. And I want you to know that every time I see this on my shelf in my office, it reminds me of you. And it reminds me of how precious and powerful, how you live with honor, and the permanence of your testimonies and your strength in the church. So thank you. Thank you for being like greenstone. Thank you for being bound with me in eternal friendship. Well, today I want to talk to you just a little bit about why this is a great time to be a member of the church. I speak to young people and they say, oh, this is a lousy time to be a member. This is a lousy time to be young. And I speak to missionaries and they say, this is a bad time to be a missionary. This is a bad time to be trying to share the gospel. And I say to them, no, this is a great time. And they say, why? Brother Wilcox, why is this a great time to be a missionary, to be a member, to be young? And I say, because the world is the Titanic and it's sinking. And you are in the lifeboat. If you're in the lifeboat, this is a great time. Not only are you safe and not only are you protected, but you are able to reach out and help others. So my message to you today is clear. Stay in the lifeboat. Do you remember the story of the Titanic? It was said to be an unsinkable ship. Why? Because it was built in compartments. Before the Titanic, all the ships had been built as one single compartment. So if it got a hole, then it filled up with water and it sank. Somebody was smart enough to build the Titanic in multiple compartments. The idea was that if one got a hole, it would fill with water, just that compartment, and then the ship would still be able to stay afloat. It was so ingenious that the newspapers in England said, this is an unsinkable ship. In fact, they went so far as to say, God himself cannot sink this ship. Well, you know the rest of the story. On its maiden voyage, it was crossing the North Atlantic and it hit an iceberg. The iceberg punched holes clear along the side. And so many compartments started filling with water, and the ship did eventually sink. The problem is, nobody thought it was going to sink. So the passengers were like a bunch of junior high kids who don't leave the building when there's a fire drill. The bell's ringing, the captain's saying, get to your lifeboats, and all the passengers were thinking he was just being overly cautious. Oh yeah, whatever, he's following his little rules that they have to follow. But we know the crew's working on it. We know things will get taken care of soon, and they'll let us just go back to our cabins. Now, the ship had stopped. The engine had stopped. They knew something was up, but they just weren't taking it seriously. That's why the very first lifeboats that left the Titanic went out half full. Now, how can that be when there were so many people who needed to board the lifeboats? Nobody wanted to get on. If you look at the movie, you think it just means that the crew was inexperienced and they were sending out the lifeboats prematurely. No. If you read the accounts of survivors the way I have, then you find out that they wouldn't get on. In fact, they were mocking and teasing the people who were getting in the lifeboat. Oh, you think you're safer on that little lifeboat than you are on an unsinkable ship? Oh yeah, whatever. Go get in your lifeboat. See, they were making fun of the people who were boarding. There were 126 men who lived through that experience. How can that be when the rule of the day was women and children first? Well, women wouldn't get on. They didn't want to go out in the dark, cold ocean on a little lifeboat. They didn't want their children out there where it seemed dangerous. They would rather stay on this unsinkable ship. The lights were on, the orchestra was playing, the first class passengers were sipping champagne. What could be going wrong? So there they stood, refusing to get on the lifeboats when they had the chance. And then something happened. The Titanic tilted dangerously to one side. And suddenly, where did everyone want to be? On the lifeboat. Suddenly, everybody wanted to board a lifeboat. But sadly for many, it was too late. Now, what does this have to do with what we're living through today? I remember a year ago reading in the newspaper. A newspaper, children, is what we used to use in the olden days. I remember reading in the newspaper, nothing can stop the world economy. Unemployment has never been lower. The stock markets worldwide are stronger than ever. Nothing can stop this economy. Then what happened? A little virus came along. So small we can't even see it with our eyes. And it tilted the world. A year ago, nobody wanted to talk about church. Nobody wanted to talk about Christ. Nobody wanted to talk about God. Anybody who went to church, oh yeah, whatever. You just do your little church thing. Just go get in your little lifeboat, whatever. See, nobody cared until the world tilted. And suddenly, people started looking at the lifeboat. Suddenly people realized that maybe they were missing something, that maybe things weren't as stable as they thought. And they turned toward the lifeboat. Do you realize that the General Conference in April of 2020 was watched by the normal number of viewers plus an additional 5 million viewers? 5 million people, in addition to those who usually tuned in, were watching conference. Why? Because they realized that maybe those of us in the lifeboat had something that they needed. October 2020, there were even more who watched. In fact, October 2020 was the most watched General Conference in the history of the church. People were turning to the lifeboat. Listen to this. Come Follow Me. Last January, before COVID closed the world down, had 33 million views during the month of January. So it's not 33 million people, but same people viewing it multiple times. There were 33 million views 1 year ago for the Come Follow Me that's digital, that's available from the church website. 1 year later, this month, January, 100 million views. Whoa. Members, non-members, inactive members, people are turning to the lifeboat. People realize that we have something in the lifeboat that they need. What is it? In the lifeboat, we believe in God. We value organized religion. And we have faith in Jesus Christ, a faith that makes a difference for us, a faith that gets us through anything, including a world pandemic. Now, first of all, let's talk about believing in God. This is a study that was done that's called the Global God Divide. It was done in 34 countries, and it shows that there are more people now claiming to be atheists than ever before in the past. And the thing that startled me was that many of these people were young people. Young people who were claiming to be atheists. And what startled me even more is that these young people were saying that it didn't make a difference if you believed in God. Belief in God made absolutely no difference in your life, didn't make any difference in your happiness, didn't make any difference in the way you interact with other people. That's what they're saying. Now, we have freedom. God has given us freedom, and people can use that freedom to believe or to not believe, and everyone has that right. But you cannot say it doesn't make a difference, because the research is clear that it does make a difference. My belief in God changes the way I see myself, and it changes the way I see and treat other people, especially in a time of crisis. Studies show that when the bus goes off the road, when the train derails, when the plane is coming down for an emergency landing, that in that moment of crisis, the believers are the ones who will turn and help someone else. The non-believers are the ones who will step on anybody they have to in order to get to their own selfish desire and reach their own selfish goal. So you cannot say that it doesn't matter. It does make a difference. Those who believe in God are shown to be happier. Those who believe in God have more meaning in their lives. And those who believe in God donate to charity much more frequently and consistently than those who don't. Right here in the newspaper, it said, people everywhere right now are struggling to find meaning in the midst of a pandemic, an extended period of disruption and isolation. Hope for the future, meaning amid the madness, is found in personal faith. That's what we have on the lifeboat that other people don't have. That's what they're realizing they're missing. We're making it through this challenge. We grieve for those who have died. We're sorry for the millions and millions who've been sick. But it's our faith in God, it's our belief in God that gets us through and helps us find meaning and helps us find hope. Yeah, but what if we're wrong? What if there isn't a God? Well, a man named Brett Scharfs, a law professor at Brigham Young University, he said this when he gave a devotional at BYU. He said, what if we're wrong? What if God does not exist? I'm willing to be wrong if it means believing and treating others as if they are children of God, with the potential of becoming beings like unto a perfect and perfectly loving God. I would rather make the mistake of attributing meaning and love to a universe that is meaningless and indifferent than vice versa. Besides, Brother Scharf said, we're not wrong. I believe love is the most powerful force in the universe, and I'm not sure we have any reason to believe love is real if we reject the existence of God, who is the source of that love. Love, you can't taste it, you can't touch it, you can't hear it, you can't smell it, you can't know it with your senses alone. But it's real. And we all know it's powerful. So how can we believe in love if we reject a belief in God, who is the source of that love? In our lifeboat, we believe in God, and don't you ever apologize for that. At a time when people are publishing books saying how silly it is to believe in God, you stay strong. Because as the world has tipped, there are not people who are turning to the books that talk about how there is no God. There are people who are turning to the church. There are people who are turning to the lifeboat and realizing that they need God in their lives. What else do we have in this lifeboat? We have an appreciation for organized religion. It's very popular right now for people to say, well, I'm a spiritual person, but I'm not religious. What that means is, I believe in God, I believe God's there, but I sure don't want him to have any requirements of me. I sure don't want him to ask me to do anything. No way, man. I don't want him to have any commandments. So they say they're spiritual. Spirituality is a very individual thing. It's hard to see in other people. It's hard to measure. But it's a very individual thing. We need more than that. Elder Holland spoke at BYU at an education week several years ago, and he said, if we all lived alone, then all we would need is spirituality. That would be fine. If we all lived alone on a mountaintop, then we could just sit there and we could just be spiritual. But we don't live alone on mountaintops. We live in families. We live in communities. We live in societies. And as long as we live in groups, we need religion. Because religion is the group practice of spirituality. See, it's easy to sit on a mountaintop and say, oh, I love everyone, I love everyone. Oh, what do you want? Peace in all the world. I want peace, world peace. Yeah, it's easy to say those words. It's a little harder when you're with people. It's a little harder when your little brother gets into your stuff, again, even when you told him not to. It's a little harder when the baby's up at night and husband and wife are so tired and frustrated that they start yelling at each other. It's a little harder when you're on the freeway and you're driving and some lady in front of you is texting and then she's swerving all over the place. In that moment, you don't need spirituality. You need religion. You need the expectations of religion, the norms of religion. You need the rules of religion, the commandments. Elder Holland calls them the loving ties that bind us and that bring this mountaintop spirituality right down to where the rubber hits the road. If I say I love everyone, if I want peace on earth, if I want to stand there and talk about world peace, then that means I better be a little patient with my brother. It means that maybe I better be a little more understanding of my spouse in the middle of the night and a little more compassionate with an upset crying baby. It means that maybe I better stop thinking some of the things I'm thinking about the lady in front of me on the freeway who's texting. Maybe it means that I need to live the way I claim I believe. And it's religion that helps us do that. So don't apologize to be part of an organized religion. One of my students said to me, Brother Wilcox, I don't believe in organized religion anymore. I said, oh, really? I said, how do you feel about organized airports? Would you really want to fly out of an airport where everybody just does whatever he wants, whenever he wants? Oh, we don't have a security line today because none of the security people showed up. So terrorists, this is your lucky day. Just come on through. Would you really feel safe flying out of an airport like that? Oh, and we don't know what they're doing in the tower. You know, I hope they're guiding airplanes, but who knows? They might just be playing video games because nobody needs to check on them. They can just do whatever they want, and they have no accountability. And don't worry whether the plane's going to take off because the pilot hasn't come, but the flight attendant, man, she's always wanted to fly a plane. So are you really going to feel comfortable that you're going to be safe, that you're going to get where you want to go, that you're going to get there in a timely manner? Why is it that we live in countries where we absolutely demand organized airports, right down to the minute a plane leaves and the minute it lands? Why do we demand organized hospitals, organized schools, organized stores? And yet, then we look with suspicion on organized religion. We say, oh, we don't need organized religion. To me, it seems like the same benefits that I can get from organized airports, organized hospitals, are the same benefits I can get from an organized religion. It can help me feel safe and secure. It can help get me where I want to go and get there in a timely manner. No, don't apologize for organized religion. Not only does organized religion allow us the blessings that are spiritual, ordinances that are performed and recorded, ordinances that are performed with priesthood authority. I mean, not only does organized religion allow for spiritual blessings, but it also puts us in a position where we can reach out, where we can help other people. I have heard during COVID restrictions, I have heard this phrase more than ever before in my life. Somebody ought to do something. Have you heard it too? Oh my gosh, the world is falling apart. Somebody ought to do something. And somebody ought to do something. And guess who's doing it? We are. Why? Because we're part of an organized religion. Elder Gong spoke to the young single adults in a face-to-face devotional a few weeks ago. And Elder Gong said this. He said that over the last year, in 2020, the church participated in 1,031 COVID-related service projects in 150 countries. What? Yeah, while other people are saying somebody ought to do something, we've been quietly doing it. Not only are we able to provide, as Elder Gong said, 30 million meals for children in poverty, hygiene kits and water and food for refugees in refugee camps, and food for members and non-members alike who have lost their jobs during this difficult time. We live in a time where I can't even get a visa. I can't even get a passport to be able to leave the country. And yet we're helping in 150 countries. How can that be? Well, it's because the church is organized. We have boots on the ground all over the world. Do you realize that in the country where I served my mission, in Chile, they're using our chapels as overflow hospitals? Do you realize how proud that makes me? Do you realize how happy that makes me to know that when hospitals fill up, our church is providing chapels so that those who are sick and needing medical care have a place to go? Don't ever apologize for being part of this organized religion, because this organized religion allows you to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. About a year ago in North America, there were a lot of news articles that were going around about how wealthy the church is. They have millions of dollars in bank accounts. Oh my gosh, they're saying it like it's immoral, like it's a horrible thing. I didn't hear anybody complain when it came time to fly missionaries home. I didn't hear anybody complaining that the church had some money stashed away for a rainy day, when it was a rainy day, and they had to charter flights to the tune of millions of dollars, even when airlines weren't even flying. I didn't hear anybody complaining then. I don't hear them complaining now when other churches are closing their doors and applying for aid from the government. Are we applying for government aid? No, because our leaders were wise enough to put us in a position so that when there was a need, we could reach out and help. That's the blessing of being part of this organized religion. In our Lifeboat, we also are grateful because we have faith in Jesus Christ. Now, I know it's not popular right now. It's not popular to believe in Jesus Christ. We live in a time where a lot of people say Christians are judgmental and they're not tolerant. And so there's a lot of pressure that then makes it a little awkward and a little hard to feel like raising the Christian flag on social media, because the minute you do, then people start attacking. I had a student who came to me and showed me a post that said, Jesus Christ was a racist. He came to the Jews, but he didn't go to the Gentiles. He's a racist. We need to tear down every statue of Jesus in the world. We need to take down every painting of Jesus in the world. Whoa. Not only did the post show a limited understanding, because Christ did go to the Gentiles after he went to the Jews, and we know he went to the Americas and throughout the entire world. Not only did the post show a very surface and limited understanding, but it also showed how hard it is right now to admit to being Christian when you're going to get lambasted like that, and when it's kind of not popular, not politically correct to say you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ. So are you going to walk away? You're going to turn your back? You're going to say, I'm not going to get on the lifeboat because people are making fun of me. I'm not going to get on the lifeboat because of what other people might think of me. Or are you going to have the courage to be true to Jesus Christ, to get on the lifeboat? He is the captain of the lifeboat. Are you going to turn your back on him? I don't think so. Not Latter-day Saints. Other Christians might. In our last general conference, Elder Anderson said that over the next 10 years, there will be more people who leave Christianity than enter Christianity. With all of its varied denominations, Christianity has always been a growing religion. But now, we're at a tipping point. And now Christianity may start to shrink. So, are we going to walk away? I don't think so. Take a look at this. Do you realize that, let me find the paper. Oh, here it is. BYU did a study last summer. It was called COVID Summer. The study was the Family Foundation Study. They surveyed non-members, members alike, and this is what they found. During the summer that everybody was locked down because of COVID, 12% of non-Latter-day Saint families increased in their family religious practices. 62% of Latter-day Saint families increased their family religious practices. Are you going to turn your back? Not according to this study. The opposition is simply going to make you stronger. We don't have to go to church in a building to worship. We didn't have to go to church in a building to learn about Christ. And we didn't have to go to church in a building to follow Christ and minister to others in his name. How about our youth? Listen to this. Last summer, 9% of non-Latter-day Saints increased their personal religious practices. These were the youth. And what about our youth? 31% of Latter-day Saint youth increased their personal religious practices. We are going to stay true to Jesus Christ, and we are not going to turn our backs on him. Whenever I'm asked about the children and youth program and what it is, I always turn the question back on the person asking. And I say, well, what do you think the children and youth program is? It's a good question because the program came out at the end of 2019. And then at the beginning of 2020, the whole world fell apart. And the program is still misunderstood by a lot of people in the church. So I say, what do you think the children and youth program is? And the answer I get back is goal setting. Goal setting. I hope you'll understand that that's just a small part of the program. If you are going to describe the children and youth program in one word, you can say Jesus. If you're going to describe the children and youth program in one sentence, you can say becoming more like Jesus. That's what the program is all about. It's not about earning buttons and badges and pins and little awards. It's about becoming more like Christ. The program actually has 3 components. First of all, gospel learning. If kids are going to seminary, if our youth are engaged in come follow me, if our youth are learning the gospel, then they are doing the youth program. That's what the youth program is. Learning the gospel of Jesus Christ so that we can become more like him. The second component of the program is service and activities. If your youth are planning activities in service, if they're looking ahead and saying, look, we'll deal with COVID restrictions now. We'll do the best we can via technology. But we're planning for a time soon when we can actually meet and gather and do service. And we can have activities. Every stake should be having every summer an Aaronic priesthood camp, a girls' camp, and also a youth conference where the girls and the boys are together. Every stake, every summer. Every other summer, they'll replace that youth conference with For the Strength of Youth. Now, do you realize that you in New Zealand, you were the pioneers of the For the Strength of Youth program that is now blessing the lives of thousands and thousands of young people clear across the world? The program that will soon be rolled out in North America. North America has followed you. I remember going to the very first, especially for youth, conference that was held outside of North America. It was in Brisbane, Australia. Soon after, they couldn't call it especially for youth because it was a church-sponsored conference rather than sponsored from BYU. So they came up with a new name. The name was a name that you invented in New Zealand. It was Time for Youth. And young people gathered all over New Zealand and Australia, and they had life-changing experiences. Pretty soon, people looked to Australia, and they looked to New Zealand, and they started doing a Time for Youth program in Europe, and then in Mexico. Then pretty soon, the church started calling the program Special Multi-Stake Youth Conferences. Whoever came up with that name sure came up with a mouthful. And we did that for a while. Then somebody got wise and named the program For the Strength of Youth, FSY. And now, young Latter-day Saints all over the world are and will continue to meet together at FSY conferences every other summer. And that all started with you. It started right in the Pacific. Thank you for leading the way. Thank you for being pioneers. Thank you for having the courage to see that youth needed to gather beyond their stakes so that they could realize that they weren't the only ones who had these standards. They could realize that it's cool and fun to be a member of the church. They could meet young single adult counselors who could stand as role models for them, who were close enough to their age that they could look at them and say, man, if he can live the gospel and he can dance like that, so can I. If she can live the gospel and she's fun, I can be too. And that all started with you. So thank you. And FSY is part of the service, part of the activities that are part of the youth program. And what's the goal of all this service and activities? It's to help people become more like Jesus Christ. We want our youth presidencies, quorum and class presidencies to be meeting regularly. Gosh, people say to me, we haven't had a presidency meeting in our teachers' quorum for like a year. Our young women class hasn't had a presidency meeting for like 9 months. I say, how often is your bishop meeting? Well, he meets with his bishopric about once a week. How often does your Relief Society presidency meet? Oh, they meet about once a week. What about your stake presidency? Oh, about once a week. Why? Because they're doing something important. Man, the world's going through a hard time. People need them. And I say, you're not doing something important? People don't need you. The people you minister to, the people you're responsible for in your quorum and in your class need you desperately. They need the ministering, the service, the activities that are part of the youth program. The third part of the youth program is personal development. And yes, that includes goal setting. But don't just call it goal setting. Because then it's easy to say, oh yeah, whatever. Set a goal, I never reach it. Same thing. I set a New Year's resolution, I never do it. No big deal. I want you to realize that by setting and reaching goals, start with small ones so you can have success. Setting and reaching goals is the best way you have of exercising your faith in Jesus Christ. Right in Preach My Gospel, it says that goal setting and planning are acts of faith. You're not just setting a goal so you can write it down and check it off. You're setting a goal so that you can learn how to receive revelation from heaven. And you can find out what God wants you to do. And then you can figure out how to do it. And then you can reach that goal, which will build your confidence as you set another goal and another, as you are determined to grow as Jesus grew in every area of his life. What's the new youth program? Goal setting? No. Learning to exercise faith in Jesus Christ through goal setting. What's the new youth program? Gospel learning, service and activities, personal development, yes. But to what end? To become more like Jesus Christ and to receive his power, his grace in our lives. That's the youth program. And when you catch hold of that, there is nothing that's going to stop you or the youth for which you care. Since we were set apart as a presidency, we've had one meeting with the first presidency in which they asked us to kind of report on what we were doing during this COVID time to try to keep things moving and keep young people motivated. We reported to them, but as we left, they asked if we had any questions. And we said, President Nelson, what would you say to the youth? What do they need right now? And he said, they need an eternal perspective. Then he shared about Joseph Smith, who was in Liberty Jail in a horrible time of persecution and horrible time in which they were cold and starving and being mistreated in that jail. And Joseph cried to the Lord, "Where art thou?" The saints are being persecuted. They're being driven across Missouri. They're outcasts. They're suffering. They're dying. We're here in jail. Where are you? And then President Nelson said, notice that the Lord didn't change Joseph's circumstance. He didn't miraculously take him out of jail. He didn't provide miraculously a table full of food. He didn't make the way easier for the saints. He taught Joseph to have an eternal perspective. He said, all these things shall give thee experience and shall be for thy good. President Nelson smiled at us, and he has his little twinkle in his eye, and he said, the Lord didn't change the circumstances. He changed Joseph's perspective, and that changed everything. At this time, when many people are struggling with physical health, with mental health, many people are struggling because unemployment rates in some countries are higher than they were during the Great Depression. It's a time for us to turn to the lifeboat. It's a time for us to believe in God, to value organized religion, appreciate it, and to exercise our faith in Jesus Christ. It's a time for us to change our perspectives, even if we can't change our circumstances. It's a time for us to change our perspective. This is a lousy time to be young. This is a lousy time to be a missionary. No. This is a great time. The world is starting to sink, but the church is the lifeboat, and you are in the lifeboat. Now's not the time to go back to a sinking ship. You can't help anybody else when you're sinking yourself. Now's the time to stay in the lifeboat and to reach out and try to help as many as you can. I leave you with my love. Eternal friendship. And I leave you with my testimony. A testimony that is permanent. A testimony that is precious to me. And a testimony that is powerful because of the experiences in my life, because of the study in my life, and because of the times when the Spirit has reached out and touched my spirit. If now is a time when you're struggling, if now is a moment when your loved ones are hurting and struggling, please feel the truth that you are not alone. Let anything I've said today strengthen and help you, and let your testimony strengthen and help them as we all make it through this together. We will, because we are in the lifeboat. I leave this testimony and my very, very, very best wishes to all of my dear friends in New Zealand. And I do this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.